Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin sucks. I love Dark Souls 2. 'Tis the holy truth, I love it. Does that make Dark Souls 2 a good game? No. But it's infinitely better than Scholar of the First Sin, and I'm here to break down why the that is. Out of all the mainline From Software games, Dark Souls 2 was about the 4th game I played. This was my play order. Bam, 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 bam. Now, I'm a huge fucking Elden Ring nerd, to the point I've no-hit Melania as well as taking her down with a fucking bow, not to mention beating every single boss on New Game Plus 7, I have no life. So going from Elden Ring back in time is probably pretty jarring of an experience, right? You'd be correct! I did not enjoy Dark Souls 3 because of that, but I took a break before going into Dark Souls 1, and that break was perfect. Dark Souls 1 is so good, what the fuck is this? Look at all the interconnected paths, the NPCs, the story, the level design, enemy placements, holy shit, it's fucking big! And then you get to the Lost Isolith. Whack. But I loved it! Fuck yes, Dark Souls 1! And so, of course, I turned to my friend, the biggest Dark Souls fan in existence, and go, "Hey, I heard a bunch of shit about Dark Souls 2, should I play it?" And he goes, "Lamau, no." So, I play it. And all that shit I heard? Oh yeah, baby, it was all true. Adaptability, controlling your iframes, what the fuck is completely out of whack? Interconnectivity, weird ass enemy placements. What the fuck is the level design? Asinine, no invincibility on fog walls, holy shit. Enemies despawn, what? Boring ass NPCs.
You're gonna lose your souls over and over.
Yeah, it's not great. But I love it. There's something so beautiful about a mediocre game of this magnitude, and it far outweighs nostalgia. I played this game first time when I was 29, don't at me. Dark Souls 2 is, for better or for worse, a much easier game than the rest of the FromSoft titles. This made Dark Souls 2 feel much more like a normal adventure game than other Souls titles, and made the exploration feel more laid back and safe. I felt like it was a world I could trust to fuck me up if I didn't take caution, but one where I wasn't constantly in a state of paranoia about where the next bullshit ambush would come from. That's not to say Dark Souls 2 won't throw bullshit at you from the shadows, because it definitely will, but I never came across a section where I said, "Man, fuck this fucking bullshit game, I'm done with this fucking garbage, fuck you." Maybe they got it, but that's just because these poison statues are fucking ridiculous. To add to this, I never had to deal with Shrine of Ass before it was patched. Instead, what Dark Souls 2 feels like is closer to a Zelda game, or Fable, or another role-playing adventure game around this time. Level designs try to be thought out in a cleaner, more straightforward path, often with set ways to puzzle your way through them, more in line with a Zelda puzzle. Where I experienced this to be strongest was in the Iron Keep. Now the run to the first boss in Iron Keep is an annoyance, let's be real, it's fucking ass. The fucking samurai dudes have wacky movesets, they can definitely swarm you, they shoot arrows from miles away before you've even spotted them, they run through the whole map just to come fuck you up, it's whack. It doesn't help that the Smelter Demon seems to be a boss that a lot of people struggle with because of the stupid fucking hitboxes, and so the average player will have to make this run back a few times. But the devs said, "Hey, let's do some cool puzzle shits maybe." So you see, if you take the corridor to the right and find a little shortcut, you come up behind one of the on-duty samurais and can nail them with a big-ass crossbow. Neat. The rest, no, yeah, it sucks. But after Smelter Demon is dead, a new run opens itself up. And this one I love. Check this out. You run past this dude cause he doesn't aggro. Next room, two beetle guys are messing around, one of them is hammering the bridge into pieces before running away. Piece of shit! So, you either take this guy out or run past and chase the other fella down, do what you like. Suddenly, next room appears. And look at this! You got a lever! Pull that shit! Oh, the middle platform lowers itself? This samurai asshole who's coming for you goes down into the lava! Beautiful! If you ignore the two beetles coming for you, they'll start chasing you, right? But if you run up onto the platform you just lowered, they'll chase you onto it and get pegged by the fire statues. Satisfying as fuck. These archer assholes, click a button and their platform go bye-bye. And then you got some more fire statues over here to mess this guy up. Fuck yes! This is a proper Zelda puzzle. This is a brain teaser to make your life easier, and it feels good. This whole super fucking room is suddenly cleared in one swoop. Great! I can touch on the rest of the fortress in detail too, but who the fuck has the time? Point is, that's fun. That's a cool idea. Got a huge hole in the middle of Majula that seems completely fine to jump into, and then you die. But wait, if you gather up your souls, buy the cat ring, level your HP a bit, bam! Made it into the hole. Wowie, that's a puzzle, mama. Cool idea. Now credit where credit is due, cause this is still the section of why I love this game. Dark Souls 2 has a lot of weapons and armor. Like a lot. Holy shit! It added power stancing, it added a multitude of spells, pyromancies, ranged options, melee options, armor sets, 2 NPCs to trade weapons with, New Game Plus treats. They went hard on this. So of course I play it too on the stream, like, what do you expect of me? But it gives you a lot of variety. My favorite run to date, I ran a broadsword in one hand, pyromancy in the other, and a bow in my second slot to lure enemies closer or to mess with ambush enemies before they could come at me. And that's a good time to me. I ended up approaching situations in Dark Souls 2 with a lot more strategic options than in the other FromSoft games, mostly because level designs were wonky as hell. Dark Souls 3 loves to ambush you and fuck you over, and you just gotta throw hands and deal with it. Dark Souls 1 would often have a set piece you gotta get into and get your hands dirty. Both of these scenarios you can strategize for, but in the end you still have to get in there and get it done. Elden Ring, yeah, you can skip every enemy in Elden Ring, we don't talk about that. But Dark Souls 2 was often very open and transparent about what your next challenge would be. Uh-oh, we're in a bridge in the sky with these exploding enemies who knock you off the bridge. Pew pew, fuck you. Uh-oh, we got these 2 guys standing around guarding their boss room. Pew pew, fuck you. Oh no, there's a bunch of pew pew, pew pew, poo poo. You get my fucking point. If anything, it feels more like a Skyrim situation than a Dark Souls one. And I enjoy that. We have all seen these kinds of clips. Yikes. Now, a diehard Dark Souls 2 defender will give a variety of excuses for this. You didn't level the hidden stat that increases your iframes. That animation is more of a hit or miss, you just gotta time it right. Oh, you clearly dodged too early, get good. So let's talk about this. Firstly, and no matter what anyone says, agility is fucking stupid! Agility is a stat in Dark Souls 2 that increases your iframes. Iframes, or invincibility frames, govern for how long you are immune to damage after performing a dodge roll. In other Souls games, you have a set amount of iframes. In Dark Souls 2, you don't. In Dark Souls 2, you, the player, decide how many iframes you have by putting levels into adaptability, hence raising your agility stat. And it will roughly take 4 levels of adaptability to gain a single iframe. Sounds like a horrible trade-off, right? And yet that iframe can save your life. Adding a single iframe increases your invincibility window by 0.03 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. Especially when you're a new player. And to my knowledge, Dark Souls 2 never tells you in-game that agility affects your iframes. It vaguely states adaptability is good for survival, but nothing beyond that. Now, agility can be increased in 2 ways. Leveling adaptability or leveling attunement. Adaptability will directly affect agility, as well as your resistance to poison, bleed, etc, etc. Which to me, at first glance, makes this stat useless. If I don't know what agility does, and again, the game doesn't tell you, this would be a waste of a stat, because I don't care about resistance to poison and other shit. Because it's never that big of a deal in this game. Never have I sat down and went, ah shit, I wish I had more poison resistance. If I get poisoned, I eat a fucking piece of moss and I'm good, like, adaptability is stupid. Attunement on the other hand, adds to the amount of spell slots you can use, making it so you can equip more spells. Great! If you use magic, great! In this case, you will inadvertently level your agility, affecting your iframes, which makes it easier for you to dodge. But magic users aren't the ones who need to dodge, because they have range at their disposal. Melee users need to be able to time their dodge as well. And melee users will have no idea that their iframes are whack, because the game doesn't fucking tell you! Check this out. The starting classes all have differing amounts of adaptability, but going by sheer idiocracy, Knight appears to be the most well-rounded static class, as well as the one most people will go for, seeing as it's a new game and they don't know what they're getting themselves into. If you pick Knight, who has 4 attunement and 9 adaptability, you will start with 87 agility. That is equivalent to 8 iframes, or an invincibility window of 0.27 seconds. Compare this to Dark Souls 1, with its average amount of iframes being 11 iframes or 0.37 seconds. We're going by medium roll in this case. Immediately as the game kicks off, you will feel way worse off when dodging than you did in Dark Souls 1. And if you don't know about agility, and again, the game doesn't tell you, the rolling in Dark Souls 2 will forever feel worse than Dark Souls 1. And the biggest reason to me why agility is ridiculous is because you never quite get a feel for how long the dodge window really is. Because if you are indeed leveling agility, it will constantly be changing. I can gauge the iframes in Dark Souls 1 because it matches the animation no matter what. Same thing in later games. I learned in Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, even Demon's Soul. I get an appreciation of how the iframes are tied to the length of the rolling animation. But not in Dark Souls 2, because the exact same rolling animation will suddenly have its iframes extended halfway through the game, and I have to get used to it again. And hell, this might not even have been that big of a problem if it wasn't for the fact that the hitboxes in Dark Souls 2 are fucking whack. I'm not just talking about the Pursuer here. There's a constant feeling of confusion in Dark Souls 2 whether you will get hit or not, that I have never experienced in any other Souls game. I'll feel like I dodged well, but a hit will land. Fine. I'll feel like I totally botched the timing and the attack will fly past me. Fine. But the biggest reason this becomes a problem is because the enemies and bosses are no longer designed around iframes. In any other FromSoft game, attacks will last a specific amount of iframes, based on the predetermined information, aka the amount of iframes a player has or can have. Dark Souls 1 will have between 11 and 13 iframes for medium and light roll. Elden Ring will always have 13 iframes, unless you fat roll. And because of this, the boss and enemy attacks will always be built around the dodge ability of the player. But in Dark Souls 2, a game where your iframes vary greatly depending on your build and your knowledge of this hidden stat, suddenly everything feels off. And that's why the combat never really makes sense in this game. And I believe there are two more reasons for that aside from the iframes. In Dark Souls 1, everything had a lot of weight. Your attacks were often slow and heavy, and even with faster weapons, your character would always pull back before launching an attack, and your enemy would give off a satisfying chunk or clunk and also stagger a bit. Same thing when an enemy attacks you. Enemy attacks have weight and mass to them, and when you get hit, your character staggers. And even with high poise, it feels like your character is hit. In Dark Souls 2, I don't fucking know what's happening, man. I'll take a hit, and my character won't even react. I'll hit a guy, and he'll just stare at me like I just asked if I could fuck his mother. I'll roll out of an attack, and because of my iframes, I'll still take damage, but I still get my full roll animation, which feels really off because I got hit. This guy daps me up with the biggest weapon known to man, it hits me as I'm trying to roll away, and it doesn't stop my momentum at all. You're telling me that thing doesn't have any weight? I forgot what number 2 was. Fuck you. Point is, combat is wacky. It's floaty, weightless, and feels weird. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, a game that I am certain inspired Demon's Soul and Dark Souls in the first place, came out in 2006, a whole 8 years before Dark Souls 2. And the combat and weight of that game is on point. Fire! God tier! Fuck, Twilight Princess is so good! And yet Dark Souls 2's combat feels off. And honestly, that's fine. I saw a quote just the other day from someone who gave tips on how to enjoy Dark Souls 2, and I believe this perfectly sums up the combat. Don't worry about learning patterns and strategies to perfection, just go in, keep the aggro up, and let your instincts handle it. And that's just it! In no other Souls game would you ever be recommended to not learn the boss and leave it to your instincts. A big point of the Souls design has been pattern recognition, strategizing, not blindly launching yourself at a boss, but taking your time to understand and appreciate the timing and range of the flurry of blows coming your way. But in Dark Souls 2, the preferred method is just to butt heads with the boss and smack them more than they smack you. Fuck defense, offense is the best offense, let's fucking go! And the reason for this comes down to a few simple factors. Mainly, bosses are way easier in Dark Souls 2. More on that later. Iframes are wonky, so learning timing of attacks is whack. Due to the surplus of healing items, the punishment of taking a hit is never too severe. The biggest reason why we are so harsh on Dark Souls 2's combat is because Dark Souls 1 before it felt a lot tighter and more fluid. That's not to say that Dark Souls 1 is perfect, it has its own wonky factors, but a sequel should, in my not so humble opinion, feel better than its predecessor. It's the direct comparison between Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 that makes Dark Souls 2 fall a bit flat. But if you go into Dark Souls 2 with the mindset of it not being a Souls game, it's fine. But this is still the section on why Dark Souls 2 is shit, so let's get on with it! People love the story in Dark Souls 2. I don't. These fucking hags in the beginning? Stupid.
Oh, you lose your souls over and over and over. This is Dark Souls, remember? Ooh.
Shut the fuck up. What the fuck is this shit? Ooh, everyone comes here and starts to forget their original life. Ooh. Alright, I mean, okay.
Ooh, the original King Vendrick lost himself and just wanders endlessly now. This is your future too.
Okay, cool concept, but like, what about the rest?
Oh, you fought the giants in the past. Ooh.
Listen, this is all nitpicking. Fucking Elden Ring does the same giant bullshit. If you like the story of Dark Souls 2, that's fine. I don't care. I think it's too generic for a Souls game, and it doesn't tie into what Dark Souls 1 presented in the first place, because it's a standalone story. To me, Dark Souls 1's story and presentation of the lore was so fucking beautiful, to the point I stayed up late after beating my first playthrough, reading through the whole Dark Souls 1 wiki looking for lore, and reading up on people's theories on what the game was telling us. All the NPCs were intriguing, their stories pulling me into the world, and even lightheartedly welcoming me at times.
Sigmar, my king!
The bosses had me gripped. Great Grey Wolf Sif,
Best boy.
Gwendolyn, Crossbreed Priscilla, fucking Gwen the Legend, Knight Artorius, motherfucking Manus, boss lore at its peak. I couldn't get enough of the game's stories and mysteries. Dark Souls 2 on the other hand, man, I don't give a fuck. King Vendrick is a cool concept, I guess. Okay, so the queen is secretly in control or something. Oh, you're all drawn to Majula because you are? The Scholar Head is just kinda showing up sometimes. Listen, Dark Souls 2 was so uninteresting to me that I can't even remember most of it. Dark Souls 1 felt involved because the world was such a mystery, and everything felt at stake at all times. You didn't know why you were traversing this world, or why you needed to be the bearer of this heavy burden. And by the end of it, you have to decide whether you will take up Gwyn's role to link the flame again, keeping the Age of Fire and this eternal loop of suffering going, or if you're going to let the fire dim, and putting an end to what begun far before your own time. Shit's fucking fire! End of Dark Souls 2, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Is it done in this cave? Yeah, okay. You can also walk out. Yeah, alright. Your primary motivation of this whole game is to find a cure for whatever the fuck your curse is. And yes, at the end they imply that you're gonna link the flame or not, you do whatever the fuck you want cause you're a girl boss. But to me that never felt fully developed in the same way as Dark Souls 1. I also don't find the Dark Souls 2 NPCs interesting in any meaningful way.
Aside from this fucking cat, she's the fucking best, holy
And boss lore just falls flat to me, aside from Vendrick, honestly lit. But storytelling in itself is a matter of opinion, and in this case, I cannot claim to objectively hold the truth. I don't like Dark Souls 2's story. If you do, I'm happy for you. You go do your thing, fuck you. Speaking of bosses... The bosses in Dark Souls 2 are such a mixed bag that the whiplash sent me to the hospital. To me, there are 3 categories of bosses. Pretty good. Gimmick bosses. Pretty good. Man, what? So let me run through my list real quick. It won't be quick. The Last Giant is pretty good. He's a good first introduction to bosses, you can run between his legs like a Looney Tunes goofery, and he rips off his own arm to hit you with it in his second phase. I'll fuck with it. Pursuer is cool. Yes, the grab can be a bit stupid, but he shows up before his boss fight to intimidate you, hits hard during his boss fight, and feels like a threat. You can get down the timing of combos pretty easily, and you can circle around him once you feel more confident in your abilities. Lost Sinner is a cool guy. I like him. It feels like a 1v1, and he's a little wacky guy. Nice difficulty spike, and it's pretty fun. Covetous Demon is peak. Absolute peak. Look at him! He just rolls around! Little guy! Look at him go! Peak! So peak! Fuck yes! He'll eat you up! He'll spit you out! No equipment! Fucking look at him! Looking Glass Knight is alright. I mean, he's just a guy. It's cool that he summons dudes. When I said Dark Souls 2 does Zelda style shit, here's that Zelda style shit. I personally like gimmick bosses, so I fuck with these dudes hard. Executioner's Chariot. It's just a fucking bull from Majora's Mask. You got little safe spots you run to, then you pull a lever, bada bing bada boom, fuck him up. It's pretty cool. Skeleton Lords. Yeah, they're alright. They summon a bunch of skellies, you gotta fuck them all up. It works. Belfry Gargoyles. I mean, it's just Dark Souls 1 fight again, but with more. It's alright, I guess. Ruin Sentinels. Nah, fuck these guys, they're annoying, I don't care. Rat Swarms. Here falls basically all the rest. They're either too easy, lame, or just like, man, what? I mean, look, there is. That's Ornstein. Again. Great. Oh no, Dragon Rider, whatever shall I... Oh, he fell off. Oh, this rotten guy is just built of corpses, huh? Oh, he's dead. I killed Vendrick, who just has a bunch of health. Not a great fight, sadly, seeing as he has the best lore in the game. I did all the giant memories shit, beat that boss, didn't know what to do, found the secret chamber where you fight Nashandra, Alia shows up and fights me, and then credits roll. I thought the Nashandra bit was optional because it was stupidly anticlimactic. I literally had to call my friend to ask him if I actually beat the game because it didn't make any fucking sense to me. So yeah. Fume Knight was pretty cool though. I'm just adding a 4th one because fuck Ancient Dragon, stupid fucking AoE bullshit with infinite hitbox, man, fuck off this. So okay. Bosses in Dark Souls 2 are varied if we are to be generous. Even those that I like are a bit too easy, and all the bosses have hitbox issues of their own. But let's move the fuck on already. I could go on at length about everything in this game, but this video is already way too long and I haven't even gotten to my main point yet, so I'm just gonna throw all my shitty opinions into this one section and not expand on any of it because fuck you. The fucking fog walls no longer grant you invincibility when passing through them, meaning enemies can knock you out of the animation. This is fucking stupid. If you disagree, go fuck yourself. The music is Majula is nice. I can hardly remember any other music in the game because it all falls flat. Dark Souls 1's soundtrack has so much personality and charm, it's not even a contest. Majula is nice. I can't off the top of my head think of another location I really like, so whoopsie. I like the cat. Emerald Herald is cute as fuck. That's all, thank you. But I lied. Yes, I've mentioned I don't like most NPCs in this game, but there are some that I love. So here you go. Cat, best. Emerald Herald, but she's cute. Goblin wheel, goblin deal. Fuck yes, my guy. Crow, good bird. Rats, where rats? Where the rats? This guy's just ahead. Dark Souls 2 takes a note directly out of other adventure games, as well as Demon's Soul, and gives you a plethora of items that lets you recover health. You have your Estus flasks, life gems of varying strength, divine blessing, different charms, the Elizabeth mushroom, rogue and crimson waters, all which restore your HP. Estus flasks have a set amount of uses that reset each time you rest at a bonfire, just like Dark Souls 1. But the game is no longer designed with these in mind, so they fall flat. You can bring with you 99 in total of each of the other consumables, while Estus flasks have a set limit of 12 when fully upgraded, making them inferior. And while Estus flasks have the advantage of healing your health a lot quicker than the other items, the animation for it is long and it will stop you in place halfway through the animation, while a life gem, for example, pops quickly and then regens over a few seconds and doesn't stop you in your tracks. They're both valid options, with Estus flasks being fairly limited. Now, I personally don't mind having other consumables that heal, only because Dark Souls 2 was built with consumables in mind. Dark Souls 1 was designed around having a limited supply and thus forced stressful situations upon you. If anything, Dark Souls 1 feels more like a survival horror game than an adventure game in that respect. Dark Souls 2 instead is designed as more of a run-of-the-mill adventure game, where healing is abundant and allows you to take your time to explore the world without having to worry that you'll run low on resources. I like it. And with that brings us to... There's this false allegory that Dark Souls equals difficult that I absolutely hate. Yes, Souls games tend to be on the harder side. This is true. But they're not just created to be a massive fuck you to the consumer. It's not I wanna be the guy or Kaizo Mario. Souls games throw you in a ridiculous situation that you can find a solution for, whether using skills or strategy, and that's what they excel at. If you run in blind, guns blazing, you will most likely die. If you stop for a second to assess the situation, you will most likely die. But you will learn something. And as Miyazaki himself has said, and I'll paraphrase because I'm too lazy to look up the exact quote, "I didn't make the games to be difficult. I made them to pose a challenge that requires you to think and use your resources to your advantage." Some shit like that. I don't fucking know. And I agree. In most, if not all cases, you are given all the resources needed for you to succeed. A lot of purists will look at you with scorn unless you're running a pure melee build, but they can go fuck themselves. Dark Souls 1 gives you plenty of options to think outside of the box. This big fucking guy giving you troubles? Buy some black firebombs, go full terrorism on his ass. Big bridge demon stopping your progress? Infuse your weapon with lightning and deal big boy damage. You sick of this one specific boss because you don't have the patience to get your skill up so you can no-hit the boss using only the broken sword hill? Get a shield and spear and do the shield poke tactic. Bada bing, bada boom. Like damn, Dark Souls 1 players got so sick of the 4 kings that the primary strategy at this point is just to get Havel's armor and tank every hit while you slash them down until they're dead. There's nothing wrong with cheesing in the game if that's what you need to do to beat it. You're not playing the games wrong because there is no wrong. You stumble upon a challenge and you beat that challenge. Good job! And yes, I will admit I play as a purist. I have no life. I have run through Elden Ring without spirits, without armor, only using faith-infused castes, because I'm a dumb fuck. I judge bosses based on my purist experience because I want to 1v1 bosses, and when a boss comes at me with some cheap fucking bullshit, it makes me fucking rage. I'm so fucking sick of it. But the games aren't built for purists. It's that simple. It's built for anyone who dares step into the game, and it's up to you to use everything available to you to get to the end. When I did my first Elden Ring playthrough, I used magic in the Mimic tier. I had a good time. It was a lot easier, but I felt like I could progress at my own pace and enjoy the game in my own way. Later, I took the challenge upon myself to go purist because I had gotten confident that I could learn, and I did. The point is, Dark Souls does not equal difficult. Dark Souls equals challenge. So when the updated patch, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, Scholar of the First Sin came out, it sought to remedy the low difficulty of Dark Souls 2 base game. And on paper, sure, that's not a terrible idea. Dark Souls 2 is a much easier game than its predecessor, as well as all the games that came after it, and ramping up the challenge ever so slightly by having more strategic placements of enemies could do it very well, as well as looking into hitboxes, potentially even touch up the bosses. Nope! Fuck you! We're gonna add 10 more enemies to each room! We're gonna increase the aggro range of every fucking enemy! We're just gonna move items around cause fuck you! Oh hey, remember Branch of the Order that you only need to use like twice? Yeah, we added like 50 more of those. Have fun getting swarmed and ganked, fucker! Fuck this fucking patch, piece of shit, fucking cunt, son of a fucking... People are telling me this is the best way to experience Dark Souls 2? All the patch does is fuck around with the intent of the original. Yes, areas are typically harder, not because they've intelligently redistributed their enemies in spots that require you to think harder, but because they've just thrown in a bunch more. The aggro range, aka the range at which enemies trigger and will rush you, has significantly increased. In many places it feels like it's double. Motherfucking Iron Keep, fuck this fuck! And not only does this create a way more annoying experience, but it also ruins previously established puzzles that the base game provided. We're gonna touch on this! So before we jump in and properly deep dive, I want to slow down a bit and explain what Scholar of the First Sin did more objectively. And as much as I personally hate this patch or whatever the fuck it is, there are some good changes it did, which I will address as well. So, firstly, Scholar of the First Sin sought to improve the game experience from the base game and expand upon it. These are the changes they applied, as well as the content that was added as far as I know. Changes to enemy placement, changes to item placements, additional lore in item descriptions, Aldia as an NPC, a dark ending after defeating Aldia, added petrified statues needing fragrant branches of yore, increased drop rates on certain items and armor set, added lots of extra NPC invasions. Joining the Company of Champions Covenant stops enemies from despawning. Include all DLCs from the get-go, minor bug fixes and adjustments regarding online play. Now before I get into why I find a lot of these changes to be absolutely garbage, I want to touch upon the changes that I personally find to be good. Higher drop rates, some item placements, mainly the Dull Ember, non-despawning enemies for Company of Champions Covenant, Pursuer actually pursuing you, that one run through before Ancient Dragon. These changes are pretty neat. Higher drop rates for items and armor sets make me and everyone else happy, because we fucking love fashion in this community. I'll grind the fucking Sand Sorcerer for their sexy armor every day of the week, don't at me. The Dull Ember in base game, needed to unlock Scruff McGruff as a merchant and a smith, as well as infusions for your weapons, is hidden away all the way in Iron Keep. It's also hidden on this stupid ass fucking staircase that has a jump that will piss you the fuck off. It's very easy to miss this. This item placement is stupid as fuck. In Scholar of the First Sin, it's presented to you right after you beat Pursuer, in a chest as you enter Lost Bastille. That's fantastic. Thank you. In the base game, and in Scholar of the First Sin, enemies will despawn after you kill them a certain number of times, as an in-game nerf in case you're having trouble with a certain area. This is fucking stupid. When Scholar of the First Sin was first introduced, it added an option for this not to happen by joining the Company of Champions Covenant, and this was added to both Vanilla and Scholar of the First Sin. Thank you! In base game Vanilla, the Pursuer attacks you twice in the Forest of Giants, once before its boss fight and one as its boss fight, and has 2 optional boss fights you can find in the world. In Scholar of the First Sin, specifically in Lost Bastille, the Pursuer would show up all over the place just to literally pursue you and make your day a living hell. He would show up by this chest, he would show up here for some reason, he'd just fucking show up and demand your attention. This is pretty fucking cool actually, although can feel a bit overdone after a while. But the idea is awesome. I would have loved to see this continued and spread out throughout the game, having him show up every now and then in different areas holding a grudge against you and hunting you down. Awesome fucking concept. This fucking area is awesome in Scholar of the First Sin. I have to give credit where credit is due. This place is packed with enemies, but they've elected champions for you to challenge. 1v1 battles as the rest of the mobs watch. Take down their elected champions, none of the mobs will attack. The path to the Ancient Dragon contains maybe 3 or 4 mobs you actually have to fight, while everyone respectfully watches. This is cool as fuck. But back on track! Let's go over the cons. Every area in Scholar of the First Sin is just packed to the brim with enemies. Like, fuck man. You go into the Forest of Giants and bam, a bunch of fucks here. Cool, a fucking hippo. Yeah, let's spam these beetle guys everywhere. Woohoo! Oh, let's go to the Heidi fucking tower. Oh, cool, let's spam these Heidi soldiers everywhere cause it's the Heidi tower, right? These guys used to be special enemies you'd find in the world and now they're just over fucking abundant and useless. Hey, we got a dragon rider over here and we got the old dragon slayer over here, so we should put a whole ass fucking dragon in front of it. Why not? Cool! Hey, remember Iron Keep? Yeah, let's make that Iron Sweep, because we're gonna sweep your whole team! This makes no sense, but look at all these fucking guys in the aggro from the whole map over, fuck! This is fucking stupid. Base game had ideas, and enemy placement was built around these ideas. You get to this little area and looky here, a beetle guy. He looks a bit scary, uh-oh. That's imposing. And then his friends blow him up, so you kill him because he has no fucking HP. You find this room filled with crossbows, kapow, wow! You're dead. But the guys inside can be reasonably dealt with once you learn, so you come back and fuck them up. Where these changes do the most damage is the second run back in Iron Keep. I showed this off before, it's a fucking puzzle. Sink the middle platform, guy goes down, chase people up on the platform, they die to fire, platform button, problem solved, fucking cool. Scholar of the First Sin changed this shit up for the worst. Firstly, added 2 knights here because fuck you! Rush past, you get into this room, hit that lever, this guy who's supposed to die on the platform now jumps down the platform into your fucking face. Like what? And they can hit you out of the lever animation! What is this moronic shit? Then you get up onto the platforms and the enemy placements are just god awful. You can't bait any of them properly and it just becomes a shitty swarm fest like the rest of the game. This was masterful and satisfying in vanilla, and it's been undone for the sake of this artificial difficulty that Scholar of the First Sin wants to implement. Scholar of the First Sin inflates the world with an abundance of enemies to increase difficulty, but also to address one of the main complaints that vanilla got, even one that I can agree with to an extent. Dark Souls 2 is a bit empty. And you know what? Yeah. Some areas are a bit empty. There are patches of just ground. There are paths that just have nothing. But Scholar of the First Sin didn't touch on those, not as it should have. Scholar of the First Sin played around with the original intent of vanilla in most areas, without considering the concepts that were put into place in the first place. Which is strange to me because these are the same devs that made the game, right? They're the ones who had all these concepts and ideas, so why did they decide to mess around and ruin the parts that Dark Souls 2 actually had working for it? Well, I'll tell you. The dev team has stated before that the reason for the added and inflated enemy placements were to encourage online play. Let that sink in for a second. The devs added more enemies to make it harder to play by yourself. A game series built to be a single player challenge, a test of a player's skill, now artificially inflates difficulty to dissuade you from playing by yourself. Yeah, we're gonna make the game so unfair that you have to call your friend to help you get through all the bullshit. Does anyone see a problem with this? And to add to this, and for once, I will contribute some due diligence and I will directly quote Denny Shiu from an interview from just about when the patch released.
And what have you improved for Scholar of the First Sin?
I think a lot of people are curious as to what we're doing for Scholar of the First Sin. You know, some of the things that I mentioned, the new enemy placements is a huge thing because a lot of people that know the game really well think, hey, I'm going to run through this game and I'm going to just, you know, speed run it. Not anymore because we've mixed things up. So it's kind of like, you know, playing a game of blackjack, let's just say. It's the same game, but we're reshuffling the deck, so it's a different game every time. The enemy AI also plays a huge part into this mix, right? Because before, you might be able to run away from some guys. Now that's not possible. They will chase you to the ends of the levels to kill you. So there's no more of this, you know, kind of sneaky way of getting through the game.
This motherfucker is bragging about AI following you to the end of the earths and never de-aggroing as the next coming of Jesus H motherfucking Christ. Dark Souls 1 had a long ass range of enemies following you, and de-aggroing them took a hell of a long sprint. but it was doable and often worth the effort to avoid a specific area or a runback that you knew wasn't worth it. See Blighttown every fucking time. Vanilla Dark Souls 2 de-aggroed rather quickly, I can admit to that, and fixing that is absolutely fine. Enemies shouldn't give up chase just because you walk past the building. But holy fuck, Scholar of the First Sin just won't fucking give up. Once aggroed, they're on you for life. There's nothing wrong with having a playstyle where you try to sneak past enemies. There isn't! If anything, it should be set up in a way that's strategically hard to do, but if you get away with it, well fucking done. But Scholar of the First Sin took one good look at that and said, man, people are playing the game wrong, let's fuck up the AI. This directly affects the gank factor of Scholar of the First Sin, because enemies refuse to de-aggro. And that's fucking stupid! And this might not have been the worst change they could have made if they didn't add so many fucking enemies in Scholar of the First Sin. Dark Souls 1 never had these same problems because areas and enemy placements were carefully thought out and it didn't need this inflation of enemies to further its difficulty. Mostly. There are areas where Dark Souls 1 suffer from the same problem. Mainly New Launder Ruins. Fuck me, there's so many stupid ghosts here. They fucking suck ass, they gank you to hell and back and they never de-aggro. This place is awful and from my experience, most people agree. And Scholar of the First Sin is just New Launder Ruins, the game. Get ganked, get aggroed for life, go fuck yourself. Now, once upon a time I read a comment so fucking stupid I had to go to therapy. And I shall, as I often do, paraphrase this shit cause I'm too lazy to provide sources. Dark Souls 2 is a combat game. And you're complaining you can't skip combat? You get ganked because you try to rush through. So firstly, fuck you! Secondly, this guy could have a point, absolutely, if it wasn't for the fact that Scholar of the First Sin's combat is ludicrous. The problem does not stem from avoiding combat per se, but the fact that the combat you try to engage in is ridiculously designed, deliberately aggroing enemies into swarming you instead of allowing you the possibility to strategize properly and taking your time with an encounter to avoid being swarmed. The increased aggro range is fucking garbage. Thirdly, as much as a combat game Dark Souls 2 or any game in the series may be, having to slowly and methodically clear an area just to make it back to a boss fight that will kill you in seconds is not a good time for anyone. Runbacks have, since day one, been fucking stupid, and I stand fast on that opinion. Even all the way back in Demon's Soul, the runbacks sucked, and the only reason runbacks persist is because of tradition. And also because Miyazaki hates us. No matter how much of a combat game it may be, I refuse to spend 5 minutes on every runback on a boss that's gonna kill me 50 times while I learn it. Imagine if you had to run through the whole prayer room section in Haligtree every time you wanted to try fighting Malenia. Do you see how asinine this would be? And so, there is a strong point to be made that if runbacks have to be a thing, then mastery of speedily avoiding combat to make it back to the boss fight should be encouraged. And Scholar of the First Sin refuses to acknowledge this as a fucking playstyle. If you play this game wrong, fuck you! Dark Souls 1 was all about using strategy and resources to survive this cruel world. But in Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, fuck you! Play the game right or don't play at all. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little heated. That's just what happens to me when I'm presented with stupid shit. In summary, Scholar of the First Sin inflates its enemy encounters, increases aggro range, removes de-aggro range completely, all to artificially increase difficulty and encourage online play. To me, this is stupid as fuck and ruins the game. Moving on! Mostly fine. As mentioned, Dull Ember is great. The most significant changes would be Estus Flask Shards and Sublime Bone Dust, both which are more or less trivialized by life gems in the first place. A significant increase in Fragrant Branches of Yore have been added, but we'll get to that. Aldi is added, so we give extra lore. Cool. Some bonfires explode, Lamau! It's really funny. Aldi is a weird ass NPC and a pretty shitty end boss, but it's whatever. Good! I like having a choice of an ending. Thanks. Go and absolutely fuck yourself with this! Lots of areas now have added petrified statues, which you need Fragrant Branches of Yore to unlock. This can be to block bonfires, items, fucking whatever. These were already an annoyance in the base game, but there were only like 2 that were necessary to progress the game, and it felt just like any other progression. Now they're fucking everywhere, and as a first time player, it's hard to know what is important and not. And to use these to block bonfires? Are you on fucking drugs? That's just a full-on dickhead move. Finding these branches is a suck-ass task in the first place. I've heard people argue that they're just like small keys from Zelda, and they're wrong. Small keys are designed to be used within a confined dungeon and will often be filled with intent. In Dark Souls 2, you get a small key that can go anywhere in the fucking world, and if you use it on the wrong fucking thing, get fucked, because now you have to backtrack to get another one from God knows where. Also, you can maybe progress, and where this shit is the most asinine is in the fucking tutorial area. And I mean this! There are a bunch of trees you can enter that teach you about the game, how to fight enemies, lock on, backstab, etc, etc. One of these trees teaches you about interacting with the environment, which to me is an important tutorial since, you know, it's a thing you gotta do in the game. For example, if a tree looks a bit wonky and suspicious, you can probably kick it over. This means you need to pay a little bit of attention to the game so you can find cool shortcuts. If the tutorial hadn't told me that, I probably would have just seen a wonky tree and gone, yep, that's a wonky tree. In Scholar of the First Sin, they put a fucking petrified statue in front of this tutorial! They blocked off the fucking tutorial, are you kidding me? Why did they do this? Oh, so they could hide an Estus Flask shard in there. This is fucking stupid! This not only blocks the whole tutorial, but also blocks off the gender change coffin, which is guarded by 2 of these big ass hippos. On my first playthrough of Vanilla, I love this little beach. The 2 hippos felt like an optional challenge to face in the tutorial area. The reward being a coffin that changes your gender is fucking weird to be frank, but still, that's cool. And you can get the Handmaiden's Ladle, I mean, come on. Now, that whole area is blocked off, all because of a reward that is, again, made insignificant because of life gems. This is fucking stupid. I could rant for hours about these statues, but I won't. Let's just fucking move on, I don't need this video to be 4 hours long. As mentioned before, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Fuck the Forlorn Invader, fuck all these NPC invaders. NPC invaders in all FromSoft games suck ass. I hate them, but I will tolerate them, sure. But Scholar of the First Sin added this one fucking guy called Forlorn who has a random chance to spawn in specific areas and just be a fucking bitch. This is a problem because early on, and honestly later too, he's got a ridiculous health pool, as does all NPC invaders, and he's annoying as fuck. I got invaded by Forlorn on the Dragon Aerie, had an annoying ass fight with this guy, ran out of all my consumables because I hadn't stocked up, silly me, and then right before getting to the top, I get invaded by Royal Sorcerer Novlan. If we already have a fucking invasion in this area, we don't need a random one to spawn. I fucking hate you! This shit pisses me off and people seem to think Forlorn is like the best addition to the fucking game, and while matters of opinion always comes in shades of grey, my opinion is better than yours, so fuck you. Moving on! Yeah, that's a good change. Despawning enemies is fucking stupid. Yeah, cool. I mean, yeah, cool. Now where does all this leave us? Nowhere. I hate Scholar of the First Sin. I think it ruins the vanilla game. Which is saying a lot because the vanilla game in itself already isn't that great. But I love it anyway. And at the end of the day, way too many people than is sensible do too. To me, getting the proper experience of Dark Souls 2, if you're not a masochist and if you value a game's intent, as well as scorn at the side of artificial difficulty, play the fucking base game! It's on Steam! It's literally right there! Fuck Scholar of the First Sin, fuck anyone whose opinion does not coincide with my own, they are wrong and I am correct. Now I'm sure there's a bunch of shit I've left out in this video and honestly, I don't really care. I have other things to think about. So if you sat through this whole video, what the hell is wrong with you? What, you got nothing better to do? Huh? Go take a shower, Stinky.